So I have to answer two questions. One, the site won't let me answer honestly when people ask me questions. So there's that. I was asked, do I support the death of innocent women and children in a war? And the answer is obviously no. But the way that that question was phrased was obviously with a political purpose. Obviously, during war, it's not acceptable to attack civilians, right? What the problem is, the people they're trying to define as a civilian is not accurate. So, specifically and only in reference to the war in Gaza, 97% of the local population has cast a vote to elect a terrorist organization as their elected government. So, by definition, you could say every single one of them, or at least 97% of them, are members of that organization, which would mean they're not innocent. In war, if your enemy is to use and utilize and employ child soldiers and women in their army, then you would be obligated to treat those the same as you would treat any other soldier. Otherwise, it encourages your enemy to use those tactics, which are not acceptable tactics. So the video I put was called, "Are we on the eve of World War III?" And on that question, I was asked the question, do you support the killing of innocent women and children in Gaza? Obviously not. But who are you talking about? Are there any? I personally don't think so. Because the vast majority have cast a vote for a terrorist organization to lead them and have been willingly employed by that organization. In all of the other contexts, of course not. Attacking civilians is wrong. But the point is, without nationality, it's hard to call anybody there a citizen of anything. So obviously, I'm from the United States. In our country, we don't acknowledge any such nationality as Palestine or Gaza. It's just simply a stateless region that is a breeding ground for terrorist organizations. The official stated policy of the United States government is that there is no nationality in that region by the name of Palestine. It does not exist, and therefore there has no citizens, which can be called civilians. Therefore, almost the vast majority of everyone who is there is a member of a terrorist organization. That context is not applicable for any other conflict. Now, what I had said was that I believe our real enemy exists in the Latin American terrorist organizations, in Mexico and Venezuela and probably other places, as well as in Persia and in the Arab terrorist groups employed by Persia, specifically in Gaza and in Yemen. Now, the United States has other clear adversaries or people that our government has, taken a strong stance towards. That personally, I think that our real enemies would prefer us to fight those people in order to make their lives a lot easier. But that is beyond my rank. I'm not a policymaker, right? I am just a man, and I support my country 100%. So if my country was to go to war with Russia or China, I would be wearing the United States flag and I would be killing those people. Yes. But I would like to avoid that because it seems pointless. I have no real beef with either of those people. I have real beef with Latin America and with the Arabs and with the Persians, but not so much with them. It's more so that our real people that we have problems with would like us to beef with those people to make ourselves a lot weaker and their lives a lot easier. That is my belief, but that is not an official policy of the United States. And if the United States was to step up to war against Russia or China, I would be enlisting and killing those people. Yes. So there's a matter of personal opinion and there's a matter of, duty to your land and your home. So I believe we have very real enemies, neither of which are in East Asia. But if the United States was to declare war on an East Asian country, I would be wearing my country's flag and killing those people. Yes. That's the best answer I can give. Like I said, I believe we have very real enemies, most of which are Muslim and Latino, not necessarily East Asian. But that's not my place to make that decision. So if my country was to declare war against an East Asian country, I would be under my country's flag. I just believe that our real enemy would like us to do that to weaken ourselves and make their lives a lot better. That's what I meant by that statement. The other thing that needs to be addressed is, why am I so mean to Canada? It's longer than I can put in a short segment, but really has a lot to do with history. I don't believe the Trump administration wants to make Canada or any of its provinces the 51st state, but I do enjoy that rhetoric because I personally have a little bit of beef with Canada. But again, that's a completely personal thing. That's not something that I would expect the US government to actually do. It comes down to the existence of a group of native people known as the Beatukin, which are obviously no longer existent. The Beatukin language was an Algonquian group that existed in the North Atlantic islands prior to European colonization and was, systemically hunted to near non-existence because of colonization from France and England. The problem is, when you ask a lot of people, they will say, oh, well, only the strong survive, right? So it's good that they were wiped out, right? Well, why can't I do that to you then? Because the United States very well could chop up Canada into several provinces and make them not Canada. What are we going to say? Well, only the strong survive, right? Is that right? So we need people to be a little more sensitive to that issue. I understand when you're dealing with large groups of people that it's impossible to accommodate an extinct civilization. The Beatukin people were a very small group to begin with. And so when you ask any of the people of French Canadian or Métis descent or English descent about, what happened to the Beatukin people, why are they gone? Then they will say, well, the strongest survived, right? Like, okay, well, that can be done to you. And I obviously don't expect that to happen. But I'm saying the United States and other countries of the world could very well dissect the Canadian provinces. I don't expect that to happen. I don't want that to happen. I just think it's a bit mean to say that the Beatuk deserved to be wiped out because they, quote, weren't strong enough. Was Canada strong enough? You see what I mean? It's not right. Works when you're dealing with a massive group of people that doesn't exist anymore, like in Latin America, for example. But in North America, it's a very tiny group of people. So we're talking about the extinguishment of a small race that people will say, well, they deserved it because they should have been tougher. It's like, well, I can treat you that way. Easy. But that's not right. So when I say, and I believe when the Trump administration says that we should chop up Canada into different provinces and make them part of other countries, such as our own, I don't believe he means that, because I don't mean that. But personally, it's a matter of the connection to the Beatukin issue. Because if you were to ask the people of Canada and the different groups that live in Newfoundland, from where the Beatukin is actually from, they would say, well, winner takes all, right? It's like, okay, but that can be done to you. And that's not right, is it? And that's why I say that shit. I don't mean it. I do not want any foreign nation to take any land from Canada. Nor do I want the United States to take any land from Canada. I just think you should rethink the whole narrative of, well, the Beotukins deserve to be wiped out because, other groups of people were just stronger naturally. It's like, okay, well, Canada's not the strongest, so somebody can do that to you if that's how you feel. And I think that should pretty much cover everything.